I would like to introduce our first guest of honor, Ambassador of Cuba, Comrade Ismara Vargas Walter. Thank you so much, Comrade, for being with us.
Okay. Good afternoon, comrades and friends. Thank you so much for the invitation. We are particularly honored today, and we also join the congratulations to our comrades from the DPRK, although they are not physically here, they are in our hearts, and they do know that we are together and that we share principles and values, which is much more important than anything these days. It's the 20th anniversary of the CPGB-ML. I got it right? And as Ella was sharing with us some reflections, very important reflections, and it always takes us back in our history whenever we commemorate anniversaries. And it's a very important moment. It's a moment for us to sit back and think again on what we've done, but at the same time, it's a very important moment for us to think about the future and how we are going to make things better and how we are going to contribute to this world and how we are going to get together with other comrades around the world. And I am very happy that today we are also here with comrades from China, from Laos, from Chile, from Germany, and maybe some other countries I haven't. No, but it's, you know, it's the house. It's the house. But I mean, it's indeed Peru as well. It's indeed an international reunion. It's very important. We have representatives not only from the European continent, but also from Latin America, Asia, you name it. So thank you for organizing this and taking into consideration also the representation of different regions around the world. All of us with features, all of us with probably different backgrounds when it comes to culture, to history, but at the same time, as I said, all of us united by principles. And we have to celebrate that. Cuba continues to struggle because of the imposition of unilateral coercive sanctions. Those unilateral coercive sanctions, which is indeed the most comprehensive and the longest set of measures against a country for more than 60 years, now those are the expressions of the imperialism in the face of our country. Cuba, as you very well know, is a very special place when it comes to our history. We are a teeny tiny archipelago in the Caribbean region. However, we have been able to reach to other comrades and friends around the world. And the main feature we have is solidarity. Cuba is very well known not for interfering on other countries' affairs, but for trying to extend the hand the way we can do it. Cuba, thank you. Cuba continues to be a challenge to the US imperialism. We know that. We are proud of continuing being a challenge, and we're planning on continuing to be a challenge for them. Defending our sovereignty, protecting our culture, helping others in need. Those are the basis, those are the pillars of the Cuban foreign policy. We have embassies in more than 130 countries, and most of you have been in touch with some of our embassies. You know, we have very small teams. We have some representatives of our staff member here with us today, 3 of them, 4 with me. However, we try and develop work with the persons in the country we are accredited to, and getting to know very well the possibilities of exchanging and strengthening, fostering relationships. That's the most important job of the Cuban embassy whenever and wherever we are. And you may always feel free, do not hesitate to contact our friends, our comrades around the world, and they will tell you exactly that their relationship with the embassy has been always based on respect and cooperation. And that is one of the topics I wanted to reiterate today. We are also very grateful for the invitation today. This is a very special moment, as it was mentioned already. We have a celebration of the 71st anniversary of the assault to the Moncada barrack in Santiago, and also the barrack in Bayamo, which is probably not very well known, but was also a very important military position in Cuba. Today, those buildings, and that is also an example of the work of the Cuban Revolution, are no longer military barracks. The most military barracks in Cuba turned into schools. And that's the way they remain. It is a very important date in our history, and Ella was very eloquent on that. I was very happy. I got really emotional because it was almost written by a Cuban, the way she expressed the how everything happened in that year. Fidel, along with a group of youngsters, they dared to face the dictatorship. They were bigger, they were way more powerful. And they defeated, as Ella mentioned our group, militarily speaking. However, the seed was already there. And that assault to the Moncada barracks was, we say, the beginning of the last phase towards the triumph on January the 1st, 1959. So when you say, or when you hear somebody speaking about the Cuban Revolution, there are 2 dates that we cannot and we will never ignore. One is the 26th of July, 1953, and the second is the January the 1st of 1959. Those are main dates in the history of Cuba. On the other hand, we also want to take the opportunity to thank you for the support, the long-standing support to the Cuban cause, and the long-standing support to the lifting of the blockade. It's an illegal blockade imposed by the US. It's been too much, it's been too long, it's about time for them to lift it. However, the US continues to ignore the international community. They even continue to ignore the claims inside the US by the civil society, by religious people, by academic scholars, by the Cuban nationals living in the US. They continue to ignore those claims even coming from members of the US Congress. And that is one of the reasons why we have to continue in our fight. The blockade is, as we speak, the main obstacle to the development of Cuba. The US continues to present Cuba in a way that most people believe that we are not able to make progress, economically speaking. And the reality is that we have prevented to be in a better position because of the imposition of those unilateral coercive measures. We always say to the US, if you consider that we are not in the position to move forward when it comes to our economic achievements, why don't you try for one single day, lift the blockade and let's see what happens. That has never happened, as you know, and we always think what may happen to a more solid economy, and we don't like to call names, but imagine the most powerful country in Europe and having been under that extreme pressure since the economic, commercial, and financial view, and what could have been the result. So in our case, and of course resilience, it's also one of our features, but we try and be creative. We really work hard. You know, we have a hard-working people. Our government continues to implement new measures in order to make it better, in order to try and move forward. But we have to say the economic constraints, the hardships are still there, and the main reason, again, is the imposition of the blockade. Very recently, and we say recently because in history 3 years is basically nothing, Cuba was relisted in the infamous unilateral list by the State Department of so-called state sponsor of terrorism. Because of that designation, these days our country is facing one of the most difficult times ever. And in this connection, we also want to express our thanks to the CPGB-ML for being part of those organizations and parties around the world, and particularly in Great Britain, calling for the removal of Cuba from that infamous list. So once again, thank you very much. The relisting of Cuba after a few years, as you may remember, President Obama removed Cuba from that list, and it was very well explained at the time that there were no political grounds for Cuba to be in that infamous list. But at the very last moment of the Trump administration, he decided to release Cuba. And we may share with you that in 1 week only, we lost more than 40 banks. More than 40 in 1 week. So you may imagine how difficult it is for Cuba to try and have a bank transaction, to simple things, trying to get a credit card. And much more important than that is the fact that we struggle to provide food to our population every single day. There is no way. You are not supposed to carry a portfolio, a suitcase, plenty of currency around the world and paying for the services you receive and for the trade. That's not the way. This is not the 17th century. We are supposed to have normal banking relations with everybody. And the imposition of those unilateral coercive measures, called the blockade, And in particular, the designation of Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism has prevented Cuba and the government of Cuba from doing what it's willing to do, which is providing well-being to our whole population. So today, for us, it's vital to have Cuba removed from that list. And in this sense, we will appreciate any initiative on your side. And we will highly appreciate any claim at any level with your counterparts around the world, trying to get together and have Cuba removed. It's an unilateral list in which we do not believe. However, the effects are there for us. And especially the fear around the banking system. Because even when the US is not entitled to do so, for most banks, it's a matter of concern. They get worried. They say, well, there is a problem. You are included in this list, so the risk is too high for me to have you as a client. And basically, we have been expelled from most of the banks around the world. And basically, we have been unable to make normal transactions as any other country may have and should have. So in these topics, we take some time to explain a little bit, because it's much more than the political speech. And the US continues to say that Cuba is trying to bring to the table a bilateral topic, but it's not, because of the extraterritorial effects of the blockade. The whole international community is affected. So there is no way, they say, and that by any means we accept that this is a bilateral matter. It's much more than that. And that's why we have been able to gather international support, and that's why we take time to explain to our friends and to our comrades the real nature of these measures. We are opposed to call them sanctions. They are not. Sanctions are measures, and they are even included in the international law, public law. However, the US is not entitled to impose any measure on Cuba. Hence, those are not sanctions. Those are unilateral coercive measures. Sanctions are entitled for people who have break the law. Cuba has not done anything like that. We have no sin. There is no violation of any law. The only thing that we have done for more than 60 years now is defending our sovereignty, and we will continue to do so. So once again, thank you so very much for having us. For me and my family, it's been 4 months in London, and it's been an amazing journey so far. Being away from home, as you know, it's challenging, but at the same time, attending events like this and exchanging with friends in the UK, and we have many, and we are very happy for that. It's something that makes us stronger, and also that gives us hope. And we will continue working with all of you, and we will continue spreading the word. We have also the huge responsibility of spreading the real word when it comes to Marxism-Leninism ideology, and we also have the huge responsibility to pass it on to our children and to our grandchildren, for them to continue with the flag, with the standard of the Marxism-Leninism. And Thank you so much for having us and for being there for Cuba in solidarity.
¡Viva Cuba! ¡Hasta la victoria! Guys, come in and take a seat. There are seats at the front. Come, quick.
Thank you, Comrade Ismara, for that absolutely wonderful speech. It is very humbling for us as would-be revolutionaries to be with comrades from revolutionary countries. As Comrade Ella said, you remind us that no matter how hard our struggle is, victory is not only necessary, but possible. And we have to always hold that in our hearts when we are surrounded by people who are infected by the pessimism which has been forced on them by a hostile ruling class. We use Marxism, as the comrade said, to give ourselves perspective on history and to understand, as Comrade Chairman Mao taught us, small things can grow if they are with the tide of history, and big things can disappear if they are against it. The US imperialism seems enormous and powerful, but it is no longer with the tide of history. It is against the tide of history. It's against the interests of the entirety of humanity. And it will go. And small forces like ours, who are sincere, who are genuine, who are not out for themselves, but for the people, who simply work dedicatedly, persistently, to master Marxism, which is our liberation ideology, and to bring it to the people who will use it. Those forces will grow. It may seem an impossible dream sometimes. It may seem like you're a Jehovah's Witness knocking at the door of people who are trying to have their Sunday lunch and don't want to talk to you. But the truth is, we have a message that is relevant to people's lives. And increasingly, they are going to wake up and start realizing it. And the fact that we've been doing it all this time and saying the same things, that one day people turn around and say, oh, that party that's been saying these things I didn't want to hear, that party I thought was crazy, all the things they said were true. And that is why the science of Marxism-Leninism is so powerful. As Comrade Ella said, it encapsulates the truth for humanity, as well as giving us weapons with which to fight for our future, with which to understand our present, organize for, fight for, and achieve the future that humanity needs. And it is incredibly important for us here in the belly of the beast, in the oldest imperialist country, with the most vicious, most cunning, most experienced bourgeoisie, to be with comrades who have faced that same enemy and defeated it. So thank you again, comrade, for your wonderful speech.